Good morning. Today we begin to look at the book of Job. Job was our Old Testament reading and worship yesterday, and I referred a little bit to Job in my sermon. Job is a book, some people call it a folk story, a fairy tale type story, and it's not a book that explains suffering. And it doesn't justify the ways of God, as God lets the things of the world go, and in places it gives me heartache in it, and I mentioned that yesterday. But with God saying to Satan, as Satan comes with the angels, and God says, "Have you considered my servant Job?" And he's a man of faith, and so this book isn't about, well, the question of Satan to begin with is Job faithful to God because of God's wonderful provisions for Job? Is he faithful because it's profitable? And so in our world today, are we faithful to God because we get all these benefits? But our lives aren't perfect, and so this book of Job in many ways looks at faith and how we live in faith in the midst of all of everything that goes on in the world. And Job begins with Job having much wealth, big family and everything, and loses everything. And in the end, again, Job is restored. His family, wealth, land, cattle, and everything. But it's not about Job having all of that again. It's a book that looks at Job's faith in the midst of trials, in the midst of loss of everything, and in the generosity of everything as well. It's a look at faith, and as we begin Job 1. It says, there was once in the land of Uz a man whose name was Job. It's almost like once upon a time, and maybe it is, a story. But he was blameless, upright, it says, one who feared God, turned away from evil. He had 7 sons, 3 daughters, and just the number of cattle and sheep and ox and everything he had. It says that, so this man was the greatest of all of the people of the East. Wealth, to no bounds, and, no one compared with wealth and possessions to Job. And in a way, I'm going to look at it as, so Job has all of this wealth. The greatest wealth he has is his faith in God. And that's what gets him through everything. But and then, it says, his sons would hold parties, and for birthdays and everything. And they would invite their sisters. And then Job would send and sanctify them. And, so Job cared for his family and wanted to make sure that his family was, sanctified, is set apart for God. It is set apart from your sins. It's, it's acceptable to God. So Job made sure that, he took care of his family. Family was important to him. And it says this is what Job always did. Took care of his family, took care of his employees, took care of things that needed to be done. And then verse 6 begins where the inserts the trouble. It says, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan was also with them. And I got a footnote in my Bible that says that this Satan isn't the same Satan that we talk about in the New Testament, but it's an evil spirit. I don't know why there would be that differentiation. To me, it's Satan is against God. But anyway, and the Lord says to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And he answers, "From going to and fro on the earth and walking up and down on it." And then the Lord says to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil." And Satan uses that I mean, this is a description. This is a good description. Wouldn't you like to be described as a man who is a person who is blameless and upright, fears God and turns away from evil? I mean, this is who we want to be, and someone that is looked upon with respect, with honor, with a person with integrity. And then Satan says, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a fence around him? Haven't you protected him from everything? Haven't you blessed him beyond all measure?" I mean, you take all of that away. He says, "You've blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased." He says, "Stretch out your hand now, touch all he has, and he will curse you to your face." So Satan is saying, take away all of these possessions from Job. Give him a life of hardship. Show him some pain and stuff. And his faith in you is going to disappear. Well, God says, let it be, but don't touch my servant Job. And so Job's children, his land, his cattle, his donkeys, his camels, his devastation is gone. And yet in the midst of all of that, as it goes on, there's just, this servant comes, this one comes, this one comes, this one. So it's just a continual bunch of people coming and telling Job of all of this tragedy that happens. And, how many of it says, "I alone have escaped to come to tell you." Just, one survivor, and there's just nothing left. And the rain is pounding quite heavily on my roof right now, if you're hearing something. It says, Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, fell on the ground, and worshipped. And, this is exactly what Satan didn't think would happen, especially he didn't want it to happen. That, Job says, "Naked I came, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." And then, it says, in all of this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrongdoing. And then again, the heavenly beings gather together, and Satan is there, and again, challenges God about Job. And God says, okay, this time you can make Job sick, you can afflict him, but you can't kill him. He has to live. And so again, Satan goes out and inflicted loathsome sores on Job from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, and his wife said, "Do you still persist in your integrity? Curse God." So his wife says, "How can you remain faithful to God? Curse God and die." And Job's response, "You speak as a foolish woman would speak. Shall we receive the good at the hand of God and not receive the bad?" And so Job understands and realizes that, it isn't from God isn't the one doing this. It's life. It's the way of the world. And Job says, there's no point being mad at God when things don't go right. And it's exactly true. But how often do we wonder, where is God? Why didn't God do something? And so many questions come that way. And so this book of Job is a lesson to us in faith. It's and it isn't going to sit there and scold us, but some other people may. And so chapter 2 ends with Job's three friends coming, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They come together to console and comfort him. And they saw him from a distance. It says they didn't recognize him. But they came. They raised their voices. They wept aloud. They tore their robes, threw dust in the air upon their heads, and sat with him 7 days and 7 nights. Just sat with him. And then, after the 7-day period, chapter 3 begins with Job opening his mouth, cursing the day of his birth, and let the day perish in which I was born, and the night that said, a man-child is conceived. He's saying, I wish I had never been born, and sometimes it feels like that, when everything seems to be going the wrong way against us. We understand Job and where he's coming from with, if I had never been born, I'd be better off if I had never been born. To have had everything and then to have lost everything and to be where I am now, but he, you know, and so chapter 3 is a lament by Job for his, you know, for his living. And then chapter 4 begins the conversations back and forth between Job and his 3 friends. And the first one that speaks is Eliphaz. And, you know, and he's, you know, if one ventures a word with you, will you be offended? But who can keep from speaking? You know, he's, you know, so he's, you know, he's kind of politely saying, you know, I want to point out a few things to you. And then in verse 12, you know, it's now a word came to me, my ear received a whispering, and part of it is, can mortals be righteous before God? This is verse 17. Can human beings be pure before the Maker? And, well, of course we can't. But that doesn't mean that we blame God for the wrongs and for everything in the world. And, you know, verse 20 of chapter 4, between morning and evening they are destroyed, they perish forever without any regard. Their tent cord is plucked up and they die, devout of wisdom. And it's, you know, we live, we die, and this is a part of life. But these, as we go through the book of Job, it's going to take quite a while before we get to the chapter 38 where we were yesterday at worship. But it's, they're trying to figure out where God is in the midst. They're trying to point out to Job that, you know, they're questioning Job. Is this God worthy of worship? Huh? My answer is, of course, God is worthy of our worship. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be on a little bit early on the early side. I don't know, 7:30, somewhere in there. But just a heads up. But of course, like always, it'll be available anytime you tune in to listen.